Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As President of the British Chamber of Commerce for Morocco, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on water-wise agriculture, challenges and innovations for a sustainable future. Water scarcity is a critical issue that affects many countries around the world, including Morocco. As a nation heavily reliant on agriculture, Morocco has been facing water scarcity for years, which has been further compounded by climate change. This has resulted in significant challenges for farmers, agro-industries, and the overall economy of the country. However, Morocco has taken significant steps to address these challenges by developing a national plan to save water and irrigation, which aims to modernize irrigation infrastructure, promote the adoption of the more efficient irrigation technologies, and implement water-wise agricultural practices. The plan prioritizes sustainability, efficiency, and innovation, with the aim of achieving a more resilient and sustainable agricultural sector. Today, we're fortunate to have a panel of distinguished experts, practitioners in this field, who will share their insights into the current challenges, opportunities, and innovations in water-wise agriculture in Morocco. Our panelists include Mr. Tom Hill, Her Majesty's Consul General Casablanca, Country Director for Morocco at the Department for Trade and Business and Trade, Dr. Fawzi Bakawi, Director of the National Interest Institute for Ergonomic Research, INRA, Professor Ghani Shabouni, Leader of the International Water Research Institute at UMC-SPE, Mrs. Mariam Dakil, Director of Green Transition and South-South Cooperation at Credit Agricole de Maroc, and Mr. Ahmed Himi, Energy and Climate Attaché at the British Embassy, Morocco. Through this discussion, we hope to gain a better understanding of the opportunities and challenges facing the Moroccan agricultural sector and the role of water-wise agriculture in achieving a sustainable and clean agro-industry. Our experts bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to the table, and we look forward to hearing their insights on topics such as irrigation modernization and water productivity improvement, water-saving irrigation technologies, and smart irrigation strategies, and resilient and sustainable agricultural practices and policy. Through this discussion, we hope to gain a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing the Moroccan agricultural sector and the role of water-wise agriculture in achieving a sustainable and clean agro-industry. I would like to thank our panelists for taking the time to join us today and share their expertise. I would also like to thank our partners and sponsors, OCP, Spirit Aerosystems, Bank of Africa, CIH Bank, Aqua Group, TACA Morocco, RMA Assurance, Agence Nationale des Ports, Kutubia, Credit Agricole de Maroc, Les Eaux Minerales de Hull, Costumar, and the British International School, and HNA Investment Holding. Without further ado, let's begin our discussion on water-wise agricultural challenges and innovations for a sustainable future. So over to you, Tom, as our moderator today.
Thanks, Stephen. So I believe I'm both moderator and an expert for the first part. Is that correct, Kareem?
Yeah. So you can go on, but your webcam is closed. We don't see you.
Oh, right. You don't see me. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah. Go on.
Okay.
We see you, but it's not necessarily better.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you. So first of all, I think we've seen over the recent years the impact that water dependency and water scarcity has on the agricultural sector, on a growing agricultural sector in Morocco, and increasingly a sector that is increasingly affected by fluctuations in climate and weather patterns. We in the UK work closely with Morocco across many sort of functions in the embassy, both in terms of our desire and our wish to support the sector in Morocco, the agricultural sector in Morocco at a smallholder and commercial level. We also have an interest in supporting UK businesses operating in the country. And finally, we have an interest in supporting UK consumers who enjoy a number of Moroccan products exported to the UK every year. Many of you will have noticed the recent, sorry, I'm getting a fair amount of echo. I don't know if colleagues who perhaps go on mute. That's much better, thank you. Just regarding the Moroccan products exported to the UK, the risks around the fluctuations on supply was demonstrated very clearly a couple of months ago with the decrease in tomato exports to the UK, leading to a noticeable shortage. Something that we're very keen to work with Morocco to avoid in the future. In terms of our programming in country, one of the key things that we have as a programmatic tool here is the CASA program. This is the program to support sustainable agriculture in the tomato sector. CASA stands for commercial agriculture. Excuse me, my screen is now frozen. CASA stands for Commercial Agriculture for Smallholders and Agribusiness. And throughout this, we're working to increase and improve sustainability and support for Morocco smallholder tomato farmers. Tomatoes are Morocco's largest agricultural export sector, $900 million in total. And the sector's grown rapidly in recent years. This is due to His Majesty's strong and ambitious agricultural policy, but also due to a sizable private sector investment over the past 20 years. Our growth has been driven by development of the commercial farming sector, but dependency on a few large commercial players is highly volatile and creates supply availability risk for the local market, as demonstrated throughout the last couple of months. Furthermore, increasing costs make it increasingly difficult for smallholders to operate in the country. As a smallholder farmer, then you don't only have to deal with this, but the seasonal fluctuations of water and other environmental stresses. So what our study has done through the CASA team has identified different strategic opportunities to drive inclusive and sustainable growth in the sector. This includes policies that can better protect smallholders, help them diversify production away from higher calibers of crop, and reduce competition for open field producers. So this is just one example of how we at a programmatic level are working to support the agricultural sector in Morocco deal with increased water scarcity. Now, of course, the next question is how can UK businesses and investors support Morocco's efforts to promote water-wise agriculture? And what opportunities do we as the UK see for collaboration between British and Moroccan companies in this field? Well, I think the thing to say here is that the UK has a strong and rich heritage in the agri-tech landscape. A number of companies will actually be in Morocco next month for the Salon International Agricultural du Maroc, where these companies will be exhibiting, meeting smallholder farmers and commercial farmers and other professional associations. Some of the strengths that these companies have is in UK-led farm management software to get better access to market data, environmental conditions, and collaboration with other market actors. Other options around solutions around soil sensors and local weather stations, and a number of companies that can support Moroccan companies with improved water efficiency technologies, including recycling of drainage water and greenhouses, enabling a move towards closed loop irrigation. Now, our focus at CIAM is matchmaking these companies that develop these innovative solutions with companies that are looking for support. And this is companies right across the value chain, from smallholder to large-scale commercial. We are very keen to make these connections where we think some UK capability and expertise can go a long way to supporting Moroccan operators. If anyone on the call has a specific need, an area where they'd like more information than this, or a specific product that they'd like to learn more about, please do get in touch and we can facilitate those introductions, either at CM itself in Meknes, and I'm sure a number of you will be there, or over the phone or another bilateral meeting. On top of UK business, we also have the UK's development finance institution, British International Investment. This is the UK's essentially impact investor. And over the last 5 years, at least 30% of BII's total new commitments by value will be in climate finance. BII intends to help mobilise more capital towards climate resilient water systems. And to this end, it's been developing CARE, which stands for Climate Adaptation and Renewable Energy Blueprint, which lays out a stepwise approach to mobilise private finance for climate resilient and low carbon water infrastructure. So please, again, if anyone is interested more in CARE, please do get in touch. And on top of that, we also were pleased in March to announce the partnership between BII and the TITO on the Africa Water Infrastructure Development Platform. And the objective here is to promote private investment in the water, sanitation and hygiene sectors in Africa. So this will focus on developing, investing and operating greenfield water and sanitation projects, as well as looking at potential concessions and PPPs across the continent. One example of this is an operational bulk surface water treatment plant in Kigali, in Rwanda. But Morocco is very much in scope, and we're very keen to see if there's more we can do here. And we're already facilitating partnerships with ONI and more. Now, my last point on sort of business partnerships is I can't fail to mention our very attractive dedicated UK Export Finance envelope. UK Export Finance is the UK Export Credit Agency, and we have a 4.5 billion envelope to support projects in Morocco, where these projects have at least 20% UK content. Now, in the past, UK Export Finance have supported several agricultural and water projects over the world, including in Angola, Kurdistan and Ghana. Any kind of UK content within that 20% wrapper could include agricultural machinery, water supply services, or even things like technical studies or feasibility studies. So again, our colleague Miriam is very actively looking at opportunities here. I'm looking at time. I think I have time to finish my questions unless I'm getting a nudge to move on. The next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges facing Morocco in terms of achieving water-wise agriculture? And how can the UK support efforts to overcome these challenges? I think on this one, one aspect is around automation of irrigation for smallholders. This can enable smallholder farmers to reallocate time to other activities, increase precision on the irrigation, reduce losses, which will not only reduce water consumption but increase yield. So an example of a simple system here with a programmer and hydraulic valve would cost nothing more than 10,000 to 15,000 dirham. Another example is counterparts for water access, such as farm registration or an adoption of water meters and technical follow-ups. That will enable active monitoring of groundwater use and support better allocation of water amongst users. My previous posting before Morocco was in Zimbabwe, where we could very much see the impact of no coherent join-up of water allocation and smallholder farmers suffering as a result. That could also include things such as tradable quotas, and then leading on to even more energy saving measures such as carbon credits and what have you. My last question before we move on to our much more informed speakers is, what's some of the joint ambitions between Morocco and the UK to expand economic links, including bilateral trade in the field of sustainable agriculture? Well, I think the focus here is very much our presence as guest of honor at SIAM next month. We see this as a fantastic opportunity to not only demonstrate our commitment to trade with Morocco, but our commitment to trade in the agricultural sector across the spectrum from smallholder to commercial farmers. We believe that on the back of this, we can facilitate further engagement through the UK-Morocco Association Agreement, where we will be having an agriculture review later this year, which will further discussions on issues such as customs and even tariffs on Moroccan exports to the UK. I will stop there, but I think the overriding message is that the level of commitment from the UK to the agricultural sector in Morocco is very large, and I think will be very ably demonstrated by our large presence and the large private sector presence at SIAM next month. Over. I believe I am now chairing. So moving on to the next questions, you'll have to forgive me while I briefly go off camera. Excuse me. So the next question is for Dr. Fawzi Bakawi, and it is, how does Generation Green 2020 to 2030 address water stress and its impact on agriculture and food security in Morocco?
Thank you, Tom, for the introduction, and thank you to the British Chamber of Commerce for the kind invitation and giving us the opportunity to share with you some of our information in relations to water and agriculture. I have a presentation about 15 minutes to go through some of the questions and address some of the other questions that were posed to me. So I'll start with the next slide and speaking about the Generation Green and how it's going to address. But first of all, giving some context. In Morocco, we are experiencing some severe droughts. Last year was an example, and to illustrate that, I will share with you the productivity of cereals, which include the bread wheat, durum wheat, and barley. Last year was about 3 million tons. The year before, it was a good year. It was 10 million tons. So we've experienced about 70% reductions in cereals. What we notice also is the frequency of these droughts are much higher than, let's say, 75 years ago, almost doubling these frequencies, and that affects the agriculture in general. Some of the models shows that Morocco will have less land, or agricultural land will be reduced by up to 30%, and a decrease in wheat yield by 8% under the effect of climate change by 2030. Next slide, please. So to address these challenges, Morocco developed a new strategy called Generation Green that aims to reverse the trend by giving the priority to resilient and eco-efficient agriculture as production model with less negative impact on the environment. This new strategy has two elements. There's a human element or pillar, and then there is a pillar that deals with sustainable and productive agriculture. Within the human element, I will just give an example, and I'll come back later with other examples. For example, we would like to move about 400,000 small farmers from a low income into a middle class by increasing their incomes through improving productivity and other things. The second element, which is directly, well, that has several objectives, but there's one that's directly related to our topic, and that's improving water use efficiency by 100% by the year 2030. Next slide, please. So the question then, to come back to the question, how does the Generation Green strategy address the issue of water stress and its impact on agricultural productions and food security in Morocco? I put together some of the information, some of the slides to address this question. Next slide, please. So the ultimate goal of Generation Green is building food security and strengthening the foundation of food sovereignty as part of food system transformation to establish a resilient and coefficient agriculture by addressing water stress through the investment in water and energy efficiency including. And there are several examples. I will mention the main objective, and that's doubling the added value per cubic meter of water. One example is to improve the drip irrigation system by adding 350,000 hectares to already 700,000 right now, approximately 700,000, to reach 1 million hectares of drip irrigation in 2030. It is well known that a drip irrigation system, there is a good saving of water, sometimes up to 50%. There's another example, is to recover water from certain dams through the extension of irrigation, and this is over 70,500 hectares. Develop the irrigation agriculture through rehabilitation of 200,000 hectares in small hydraulic rehabilitations of Katara, setting of groundwater renewal thresholds. Next slide, please. What are some of the innovation and best practices that Generation Green 2030 strategy promotes to enhance water efficiency and conservation in the agriculture sector? Here is where my institution, INRA, Institut National de Recherche Agronomique, is developing some of the technologies that can address some of these challenges. Next slide, please. So one of the work we do at INRA is breeding basically more resilient crops that address some of the challenges. INRA in the past has worked with other partners, in particular ICARDA here in Rabat, to address to develop some of these varieties. An example, we came up with new varieties that we have registered that can have as much as 30% more yield in a year of drought. We define a year of drought as a rainfall of 200 millimeter or less. And these varieties are now in the process of multiplication and will reach the farmers in 2 to 3 years. Next slide, please. In addition to what I just described on the cereals and legumes, we are also looking at more resilient type of crops. And I am giving here some examples. Within, for example, the cereals and the legumes, barley, durum wheat, oats, triticale, lentils, chickpeas, beans are all more resilient to others. We found last year in a drought year that triticales are really interesting and could be explored furthermore. They shown the most resilience compared to other crops. Triticale are used mostly for feed, but they can be mixed also with bread wheat and give a reasonable quality of bread. Others concern the trees, and that include carob, olive tree, the figs, pomegranate, almonds, and also we can add to those cactus and argan. All these trees have less demand in water compared, let's say, to citrus or other plants that are widespread in Morocco. Another category of plants are plant aromatic and medicinals, and that include capers, mugwort, and rosemary that also show more resilience compared to other plants. Next slide, please. And now I'll talk about some of the technologies that the point I just made relates to basically genetics and types of crops. Now I will talk about some of the technology that can save water or use less water without affecting yield very much. There is the low pressure localized irrigation, for example, that we tested in collaboration with ICARDA and MIT. And this technique, and UM6P2, this technique has shown that we can save energy and save water overall without affecting yield. Next slide, please. Nano irrigation is another technology. We tested in quinoa in Laayoune in southern Morocco, and we find that we can have also better yield and saving mostly water. You can save as much as 60 to 80% compared to drip irrigation. Next slide, please. Another method we have demonstrated in several crops, including date palm, clementine, where we could show that by using what we call continuous deficit irrigation. And here we start by reducing the water and looking at the point where yield is affected, and we stop at that point. In other words, we reduce the amount of water without losing yield, and we can save as much as 30% of water in the crop we tested. As I said, the date palm, and also we've shown this in olive tree. Next slide, please. One other technology that we have not expanded, but the Ministry of Agriculture is focusing on, and there's an objective of developing approximately 1 million hectare with this technology that's called supplemental irrigation, also known as complement irrigation. We've tested this in small fields and shown that it can work. And here, this will be mostly used, for example, for cereals and other crops that don't require a lot of water and depends on rain. So in a year of where there is a low rainfall, we use an irrigation system just to add what is needed. In other words, if it rains sufficiently, we won't do irrigation. If it needs 10 millimeters or 50 millimeters, we'll add only the water. And this could be in the semi-arid areas that are now used for cereals in particular. We believe that by doing this technology with 1 million hectare, we will stabilize the yield and be more regular in terms of productivity. Next slide, please. A technology that we have already started that address also the issue of drought, and it's the no-till system. It's widely used in developed countries, let's say, such as Canada and the US, in Europe, and here the idea is not to do a conventional tilling. When you turn the soil, you lose whatever water was preserved or conserved that is needed for the development of plants. And this is used in again, rain-fed area. We have an objective within the Generation Green strategy to develop 1 million hectare of no-till system. We are in the third year, and so far we are at about 80,000 hectares that has been done. And one of the challenging elements is to provide seeders that are different from the conventional seeders. And the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, has provided subsidies to buy these seeders and to supply them to cooperatives. And this technology, just some of the elements that are shown in here shows the benefit. You can have 25 to 100% increase in yield, depending on the farm. You can increase the net profit of the farmers, reduce the productions because you use less diesel, because you do only one run with a tractor compared to two, and there is carbon sequestration in the soil because you don't turn the soil, so you don't disturb the microorganisms that are in the soil, and you reduce erosion. So this is an important technology that is Morocco in the process of implementing within the year 2030. We are hoping to achieve 1 million hectare. Next slide, please. Some of the newer technology that are in particular related to precision agriculture and digital agriculture in general, I will give 3 examples. The next slide, please. This is what we call a vocational map. There are some areas in Morocco that are more suitable to some crops to others. We use data from soil analysis, from meteorological data, from experience, and develop this map. We developed this map in 7.25 million hectare in Morocco, so that the farmer use the most suitable crops that are more adapted, and in this way we can save water in some regions. Next slide, please. Another program we have developed is called the National Agro-Meteorological Monitoring System. This is a system that will be used basically to forecast yield and use different data to predict yield also, and depending on the meteorological conditions, we can help the farmer and the government predict and plan ahead for production. Next slide, please. And then there are newer technologies such as drones and satellite information that could be used to look at soil fertility, moisture content, soil texture, pest population topography. All of these can help the farmers and overall maintain and produce in a more efficient way. Satellite imaging can tell us the condition of moisture, and if there's no need to provide irrigations, we could save water this way without losing in productivity. Next slide, please. Another question, how are smallholder farmers being supported to adopt sustainable water management practices, and what role does the Ministry of Agriculture play in this field? Next slide, please. So the Generation Green, in its foundation #1 that I mentioned, gives paramount importance to the human element, especially young farmers. The Ministry of Agriculture plays a central role in supporting them through several initiatives, among them incentive focus on improving farm income, annual agriculture insurance of 1 million hectares of cereal and legumes and 50,000 hectares of fruit trees, social coverage and organization situations of farmer, encouragement of the installation and exploitation of agricultural land, training, supervision, and support through technology transfer and advice programs, and creation of a new generation of solidarity agriculture project. Next slide, please. And this is the last question I believe I'm going to address. How do you see the water energy nexus in the context of sustainable development in Morocco, and what opportunity exists for leveraging renewable energy technology to support sustainable water management and agricultural practices? So there are 4 points. Morocco has embarked on an ambitious program of desalination of seawater, which requires surely significant needs in electrical energy. At the same time, Morocco has made very significant progress in the transition to renewable energies. The water energy nexus in Morocco will therefore have to be understood through desalination units that run on renewable energy, and several opportunities are available in the Moroccan context, namely solar and wind energy. And I believe that's end my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Bikawi. That was very interesting and great to hear how much the National Institute is doing for WaterWise and some pioneering stuff. For the next speaker, we have Professor Ghani Shabouni, lead of International Water Research Institute at UMCSP. So, Professor Shabouni, please, would you mind starting with answering the first question, which is, what sustainable agriculture innovations is OCP Group implementing in Morocco? I think you might be on mute, Professor.
I thank you very much for the invitation. I sent this morning a PPT presentation, and I will try to go very fast because a lot of aspects that I want to address has been addressed by my friends and colleague, Fawzi Bikawi. So we'll focus on 2 things. The first thing is about what OCP is doing, because the question that we receive will wrote this. Basically, OCP is, let's put it this way, is one of the big industrial consumers of water resources in Europe. However, we have to relativize this because the source of consumption of water is agriculture, is about 87%. However, OCP is making a lot of effort in order to reduce its consumption first, and we have been achieving for the time being very good result. Water in OCP is used in 3 phases. In the first phase is reducing the dust of the mine by watering the area, and then selecting the grain through flotation. And the third one is conveying the phosphate from the mine to the port using pipeline. And one of the critical technological issue is how can we reduce the amount of water needed to convey the phosphate. It is very important issue. The phosphate is now, for the specialists, is non-neutronial fluids. There is no specific model that can address it, and we have several groups who are working on developing a specific model for slurry paper in order to reduce the amount of water, and saving water will be huge. And then when we get to the port, we use water for several purposes. The first one is basically is regarding the fabrication of the acid, phosphoric acid and sulfuric acid, and the second thing is OCP has taken what they call some societal engagement of being of using 0 cubic meter of fresh water by 2030. So how are we trying to do this? Through innovation, by optimizing the use of water through the value chain, using as much as possible conventional water, reclaiming urban water, and using seawater, and of course investing in research and innovation with this. So regarding the water management, I think that it has to be addressed in systemic way. It is, yeah, it's of course the most important water user is in the agricultural team, the agricultural domain, but it has to be addressed in systemic way. For example, if we talk in Morocco about urban water treatment, Morocco has done a lot of effort for the past 20 years in installing water treatment in big cities. However, in a rural area, nothing much has been done because Morocco cannot afford it. Cannot afford installing one treating station of in each village. And here we have to be innovative. We have to adapt an how can you put it, participatory approach to get the population involved in the project and to use low-tech and local material in order to install this water treatment in rural Morocco. And the impact will be seen very fast, because by not doing anything, we are hammering the environment, because the wastewater is going down to the water table. We are jeopardizing the health of our children because they are playing on this dirty water, and the health of our animals. So I think that there is niche for low-tech technology, participatory approach in order to address this important issue in Morocco. OCP is investing a lot of money, next one, a lot of money with regards to desalinization, in addition to our effort in reducing our own consumption. By 2021, we reduced our consumption by 10.3%. Compared to 2019, where we reduced it a little bit less. But we are in this path. On 2024, we are shooting for reducing our entire consumption by 50%, by 15%. I'm sorry. But at the same time, OCP is investing a lot of money to provide desalinization statements, a desalination station for its own use, for its industrial use, and also to provide the local population with water for drinking and some supplementary irrigation, as my friend Fawzi talked about it, in order to help them to cope with this constant tendency of reduction of the precipitation. So we are investing, we're planning to install 4 big, huge desalination stations in Laayoune, Asafij, Dida, and others. And also, Morocco has a lot of brackish water. And in the Hamna region, in the Moroccan Sahara, there is a lot of brackish water. I mean, I've been doing some sampling in the Laayoune area. The water table is not very far, but it has a huge amount of salt. And here again, there is a niche for private public partnership in order to put together a small station to desalinize this brackish water, but it has to be powered by renewable energy. And here you come back to the issue of nexus water, energy, and agriculture, which is very important. And I think that there are several areas of Morocco where we have this problem of brackish water. We also have some problems raising up. The media is not talking about it yet, but due to extended irrigation in the coastal area, we are seeing some seawater intrusion taking place in several areas. If you take, for example, the Walidia region, which is near Safi, it used to be a hotspot of tomato production, but now the land is abundant because there is increase of seawater intrusion. The OCP strategy is incubating all its development and innovation within the UM6P. So the UM6P is basically trying to answer to innovation challenge of OCP, but not only. UM6P is also an university that are having his own pathway in terms of working on strategic issue regarding the development of Morocco, regarding the adaptation of Moroccan economy, agriculture to climate change. And here we go very, very fast. We have, I think one thing that I agree with my friend Fawzi here, with regard to academic, we produce research, we produce know-how, but how to convey this research to the farmer. And OCP put together an initiative of extension services in 2018 called Mutmir, that it is working closely with INRA, working closely with other research and education institutions that try to transfer the know-how in terms of irrigation practices, in terms of fertilization recommendation, in terms of agricultural practices to the farmer. Now this initiative, Al-Mutmir, has joined officially UM6P. It is not OCP anymore. So because we believe strongly that a university like OCP, if there is no impact on public policy, on population well-being, we will not do our job. So now Al-Mutmir is there, is with us. So I will escape what Fawzi has said about no-till farming, which provide water saving, carbon preservation, etc. in the soil. Here we have also a conversion interest, and we work together with our colleagues from INRA about digital technology. I think that digital technology is a very, very powerful tools to have sustainable agriculture future in Morocco, with managing both water availability, how much water should we give, and what kind of how much water and when we should give it, supplementary irrigation or deficit irrigation, as Jose has put it, is how we can develop a new type of grain that it can, what they have been doing with Icarda, this huge job about developing this wheat that require 30% less water than the one that we have been using, and we are able to see its multiplication so we can test in our experimental farm. The other thing is, as I said, water has to be addressed in systemic way. It has to go from the mountain to the sea. I mean, you know that water in Morocco, the Atlas in Morocco is the water tower. So about, let me give you one example in Marrakesh region. About 64% of water that is infiltrated to the water table comes from the snow. So we cannot do predictive measurement of water if you don't address the snow contribution to both groundwater and surface water. So SCP is funding us some project addressing this issue of the snow. We also have several projects dealing exactly with the need of the population. You know that we have couple mine in Morocco, and we are convinced that for equity reason, people who are living in the area, in the vicinity of the mine, has to benefit something from having the phosphate in their. So we have a huge project of about 10,000 hectares, which in the Hamna region, which is very poor region, which is water is salty. So what we are trying to do is to build a strategy with the end user, with the NGO, with the government, in order to seek what is the best solution that they can cope with the shortage of water. And here I come back to the issue of desalinization of brackish water, and also what kind of plant that treated the ecosystem, as Jose has put it. I mean, we need to have some, we cannot grow everything everywhere. We should have, and I completely agree with him, and I think that we cannot allow everybody, I mean, people to grow something in area that is not suitable for. So the work that we are co-constructing with the population, with the scientists, with the NGO and the representatives and the government is co-building a solution that it is acceptable and sustainable for the region. And for us, this is the only way to make sure that the result of research and innovation can be appropriated by the local population, because they are there from the beginning. It's their solution. It's not a solution that the academic brought to them. Irrigation management, as I said, we still, I mean, the efforts that have been done by taxpayers through the generation and from Albert have been putting a lot of money in terms of modernizing the irrigation, moving from flood irrigation to drip irrigation. But according to our fine-tuned data collection, we think and we believe, and I think that Fauzi will agree with me here, that there is still room to make some more saving in terms of water use on irrigation with drip irrigation, because I mean, we have done some analysis. We were a bit surprised to see that we still have 40% of population and 20% of evaporation. So we are testing several techniques using digital data, satellite data, drone, and artificial intelligence, plus what we call the process model, and we are collaborating with INRA on this issue with colleagues from INRA. One other thing with regard to adaptation, I think that the change in the trend of the precipitation regime, change of the trend of the temperature regime put us to think about what's about adapting the sowing date to the new situation. And we have done some exercise here on adaptation of sowing date in the Marrakech region. And by optimizing the sowing date, we optimize the water availability, and we increase the yield and reduce the need of water. And if we combine this with what the colleague in Icarda and INRA has been doing, to combine it with new variety, I think we can do some headway. With regard to irrigation technology, we are testing, drip irrigation technology. We are testing macro irrigation. We are testing drip irrigation at the surface, drip irrigation at the under subsurface, to try to see what we gain and how can we better manage this water. What is the best system for what kind of crop, for what kind of soil? And there is an interesting project in the domain agricole, and it is very interesting that there is no silver bullet. There is no system that works all. There are a lot of parameters. We are trying now to gather all the conditions and to provide guidance to the end user and to the farmer about what is the best system for them according to their condition, to their soil condition, according to climate, etc., etc. And they will finish up by saying that, there is some side effect of green generation, non-green generation from outside, which lead to some, in some region, to a huge drop of water table. And here we need really to work on this issue, both in terms of monitoring, modeling, and making the right policy for water table, because it is the strategic reserve, and we cannot afford leaving future generation without any water, any groundwater, especially with the reduction of the precipitation. There is a reduction of the recharge, and when the pumping increase, we are hitting the wall. And we are working with the ministry now to put together some monitoring of some in some basin in Morocco, using new technology like NASA satellite base to follow the dynamic of the gravity, which is related to the water table. And we really need to reinforce the policy with regard to the pumping. This is my take home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Very comprehensive, very helpful. I believe our next speaker, Mrs. Kill, is unable to join us, having some technical challenges. So unless I am wrong about that, we'll skip forward to my embassy colleague, Mr. Ahmed Himi, who is the Energy and Environment Officer at the British Embassy in Morocco. So Ahmed, over to you. And first question, in your opinion, what are the most pressing environmental challenges that need to be addressed in the agriculture industry, and what role does energy play in mitigating them?
Thank you very much, Tom. And thanks for having us here at the webinar to discuss the water wise and the role of water and energy in Moroccan agriculture. It's especially interesting, especially when reading these days, we have shortages of wheat, shortages of tomatoes. At the same time, we have record-breaking avocado production. So there definitely needs to be some policies put in place to make sure that we have a sustainable agriculture practice, that's adapted to climate change, to the water stress, and to the increasing temperatures. I just wanted also to, before I answer the question, to specify that Morocco, along with the UK, have been a signatory of the Agriculture Breakthrough, which is part of the Breakthrough Agenda, which was launched by 45 world leaders, initiated by the United Kingdom during the COP26. So the Breakthrough Agenda is a commitment by countries to work together to accelerate the development and the deployment of clean technologies and sustainable solutions to achieve, a set of goals by 2030. Of which the agriculture breakthrough goal is to make a climate resilient, sustainable agriculture the most attractive and widely adopted option for farmers everywhere by 2030. So yeah, and when we look at water, especially from someone who's had an energy background, when we look at water, we just look at energy primarily because you need energy to pump it, to filtrate it, to distill it, to do all types of transformations to it to make it drinkable. So each time we use 1 liter of water, we're using energy, and that is something to keep in mind. And it's become to a point where water now in agriculture, which is traditionally has been using 80% of Morocco's fresh water, of which the other 20% goes to drinking, industry, and tourism. But it's actually starting to rival and impede the sustainable development of the nation, in the sense that if Morocco is thinking about putting together a hydrogen offer, it's going to need water to produce that green hydrogen. If it's looking to increase the added value of its industrial sector, it's going to require more water. And as was described in the previous presentations, that Morocco has, because of the water stress, been increasing the amount of desalination plants, wastewater treatment plants, and all of these are energy consumers, especially desalination. It's very energy énergivore, as in French. But yeah, so there. And if for the Moroccan economy to grow, it's going to need more renewable energy. So if all this extra energy is going just to solve the deficit of water for agriculture, we're going to be missing out on a lot of opportunities in the other sectors. So that is something that's reducing the use of water in agriculture has multiple impacts, not only directly on the agriculture industry itself. And secondly, like the role of energy in agriculture, I mean, several solutions have been described by Dr. Fawzi and Professor, and they showed. I mean, I could just stop my presentation and say that use renewable energy for all your new technologies, and that's it. But it has to also be adapted to the Moroccan needs and to the Moroccan landscape. We have a majority of smallholder farmers of, I think, less than 5 hectares on average. And I mean, one of the solutions that was described was, for example, drip irrigation. When we try to, I mean, drip irrigation by itself is really interesting in reducing the amount of water used for irrigating crops. But if we try to plug renewable energies to it, for example, specifically solar energy, so photovoltaic, there are some considerations that need to be put in place, especially in government policy. For example, what we've been seeing is the drip irrigation zoning and programming was done on a 24-hour basis with several small zones operating on 2 hours. So that makes that drip irrigation cycle on 18 hours. But if we were to use, for example, solar pumping, we only have 6 hours where we truly can harness the power of the sun. So perhaps that we need to start talking with the experts in the field who do the sizing of these drip irrigation systems, to take in consideration that the system will be running not on a grid electricity, but on a solar array, and that will change the sizing of the system itself and make it more integrated with renewable energies. So there are these kind of things that need to be taken into consideration. And also, we've been focusing mainly on the water use, the direct water use of agriculture, but we need to also look at the upstream and the downstream of agriculture. Specifically, when we're looking at what happens to the products after they're grown, after they've used up all this water, we have a big problem of agricultural waste, especially in our markets, in our local markets, in our households. And refrigeration is going to be a key aspect to extend the shelf life of these products that we're growing, to reduce the waste, the agricultural waste after it's been harvested. So energy is going to play a big role into making sure that those refrigerators are running properly, especially in these decentralized rural areas that don't have an easy access to the grid, or whose access to the grid makes it quite expensive. We're going to need to look into these small decentralized power generating units combined with high efficient equipment for refrigeration to allow smallholder farmers to extend the shelf life of their products, to be able to get more value and perhaps even use less crops and allow for a better rotation than to overextend and stress the land and overuse fertilizers and overuse water just to reach a certain amount of profitability. One last point I wanted to bring up is in terms of energy, and it's the butane, which is actually a bit of a hamper in terms of the transition of agriculture to using more cleaner energy in their production. And it's this butane subsidy that's keeping the return on investment of a lot of renewable energies at bay. But we've seen that it took a big program that was that allowed to bring quality of the solar array installers, to bring back this faith into renewable energies. The spike of diesel prices, the spike of transport has made the producers look more into solar arrays, but there's still a lot that needs to be done, and especially in terms of government policy, to see how to signal that butane subsidies are actually a hamper for for farmers, both large and small, to invest in renewable energies. Okay, Tom, do you want me to move on to the second question?
Yes, please do, Ahmed.
All right. So my second question is regarding the aspect of circular economy, and if the agriculture industry, what would be the benefits for it. But at first, you have to understand that nature in itself, by definition, is circular. Fruit grows, drops to the ground, rots, becomes nutrients for the next plant, which grows and absorbs the sun. But before I get into circular economy, first we have to define it, because a lot of the times it's misinterpreted as just being, reduce, reuse, or recycle. Circular economy is about looping the loop and controlling the flow of materials across the entire supply chain. And that's not only at the producing level, but it's, farm to farm to fork, and from fork back to the farm. The difficulty is now that we are in this globally integrated supply chain where certain parts are brought over from abroad, processed here, sent over, reprocessed, and come back to reach the final consumer. And the first aspect that the circular economy has to push forward is to look at developing the entire value chain from the raw material to the final processed product and back to its origin. And that's because we're extracting a lot of water and nutrients and fertilizer from the ground, and they're being shipped off, for example, to the UK in the form of tomatoes, but that's liters of water and kilograms of fertilizer and nutrients that are gone, and hence the need for more irrigation, for more fertilizer to be used in these farms. But if we start adopting the principles of the circular economy, where perhaps if we increase the value of the products that are being exported, in the sense of making jams, making juice in bottles and in glass bottles that are locally made, we are not only reducing the carbon footprint of the product, but we're allowing it to be controlled within Morocco's borders, to control the value chain. And even if it's exported, then it would be at a much lesser cost of materials, of energy, and of CO2 emissions. And when we're talking about CO2 emissions, it's important to have this notion of scopes. So there's scope 1, 2, and 3 generally. Scope 1 is what you're actually using directly. So for example, if you're burning diesel for your tractor, that diesel is contributing to a certain amount of CO2. Scope 2 would be other energy that aren't necessarily produced on site. So for example, the electricity that's used, and Morocco has a heavy coal powered electricity. Obviously, it's made several commitments and is putting together several strategies to increase the renewable energy mix within electricity generation, but it's a hamper when we're looking at the carbon, embodied carbon of these agricultural products. And finally, scope 3 are other inputs and what their carbon price is. For example, in the case of, for example, fertilizer, we're going to, for each kilogram of fertilizer used, it has its equivalent of how much energy was used to extract the fertilizer, process it, transport it, etc. And why is this important? Is, for example, within the EU, if they're going to start importing products, they've talked about a carbon tax at the borders, the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And this is a beginning, which is starting in the EU, but it's most likely going to propagate and become the norm around the world. And Morocco, which has a big dependency on agricultural exports, will need to make sure that these products are as low carbon intensive as possible. So most likely the beginning is going to be on scope 1 and 2 in the sense of how much energy was used and its equivalent CO2 emissions. But if ever the scope 3 is incorporated, then we're going to need to look at all the fertilizer, all the desalination amounts of energy that's being used to produce that water that's going for the crops, and it might play against Morocco's interest for its export business. So it is really important for Morocco to adopt this sense of circular economy to make sure that it controls as much of the flow of the materials, of the value, and be able to reduce as much as possible the energy consumption, especially energy derived from fossil fuels.
Please carry on, Ahmed.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, and for the next question, So yeah, given the current climate crisis, what policies do you think governments should adopt to encourage the transition to more sustainable agricultural practices? And what role can energy and environment experts play in these efforts? So as I described, mainly problems regarding water and energy itself. I think there are other problematics that need to be incorporated into these policies. I mean, we had the fantastic description of the green generation, but there are aspects of the demographic growth and the intensive urbanization that's decreasing the water quality, the industrial runoffs, the slow wastewater treatment infrastructure investments that's been hampering, the uptake of reused water, soil fertility loss, the eutrophication of water bodies, deforestation, desertification, pesticide pollution, loss of biodiversity. These are all things that contribute to what we call sustainable agriculture. We don't want to, when we talk about sustainability, there's the three aspects. It has to be socially acceptable, it has to be economically feasible, and then it has to be environmentally friendly. So we can't sacrifice one for the other. We can't say, to farmers, stop farming because you're, using up too much water, because they need their livelihoods. And at the same time, we can't. I'm sorry, my throat is drying up. But yeah, so policies need to have a multidimensional approach. They need to be integrated with other aspects and other fields, looking at reused water from urban centers to irrigate close farming. We need to look at developing decentralized energy production for these very out of reach areas. Because there are also problems with the infrastructure itself in terms of power transmission. Our grids are still have a very small margin to transport renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture can help Morocco achieve its NDCs, its nationally determined contributions to the Paris Accords and reducing emitted carbon greenhouse gases, by developing decentralized renewable energies specifically for these large agriculture producers, who can not only benefit from free energy for pumping and fertilizing, but also from desalinating their own water for their own need without having to use the national grid or national water suppliers. The second aspect, which was also touched upon by my colleagues, is in terms of capacity building and awareness raising. Still to this day, there are many smallholder farmers that do not understand how these new technologies work. They do not understand, they still have these preconceptions that the more fertilizer you throw in the land, the more water you irrigate with, the more the yield. But I think Dr. Fawzi can attest that there are certain levels of irrigation and fertilizer which reduce the yields, and that has to be more widely spread. These new technologies can definitely help, but they need to be adapted to the Moroccan landscape, specifically of these rural farmers that don't necessarily have this tech savviness or level of education that will allow them to use such technologies. And hence a big campaign of awareness and education needs to support these national strategies, whether they're for green generation or for sustainable development or for renewable energies. And I'll stop there, Sue.
Ahmed, thank you so much. Very, very interesting. And yeah, very nicely illuminates the crossover between energy and agriculture. I'm pleased to say that we have a colleague who's just been able to join us, and who can talk. So Mrs. Mariam Dakil, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Please do join us from as Director of Green Transition and South-South Cooperation at Crédit Agricole du Maroc. First question, Mrs. Mariam, is what is Crédit Agricole du Maroc's role in promoting sustainable agriculture and water management under the Green Generation Initiative?
Hello, thank you, and sorry for the delay in connecting. There had been some technical problems that are hopefully solved now. So yes, it's a pleasure to be with you and to contribute to this event. I will give some insights on how Crédit Agricole du Maroc works and contribute to this important question of sustainable use of water. So first of all, I just want to give you a broad idea on who we are. So Crédit Agricole du Maroc is a public bank, and agriculture financing is our main purpose. So we have a mandate for financing the agricultural sector, and the agricultural loans are our main, represent more than 50% of our global portfolio. So as you can imagine, agriculture is key for us, and sustainability is in our DNA, because whenever you're talking about agriculture, you're talking about how we can use the natural resources, and the challenge is to use them sustainably. So we have a sustainable development strategy that was formalized in 2010, and that we have also published Livre Blanc de la Finance Durable, Sustainable Finance White Paper in 2015. That summarizes what we are doing regarding sustainable development. So first of all, our first pillar is financial inclusion of the rural and farmers. This is very important for us. This is, as I said, our mandate. So we have to make sure that whatever we're doing, we include all the farmers and all the rural people in it. Secondly, the pilot projects. We have to, because we're talking about sustainability, we always have to innovate and find new practices that we can incorporate and support, so that our clients can have a better sustainability. Increased financial support. That means that we have to provide offers that will help our customers adopt these new practices and sustainability. And finally, of course, the CSR part, which is really key in supporting social actions towards the rural areas. Next, please. So I will focus on two aspects which are directly related to how we make sure that water is sustainably used. First of all, we have a foundation for sustainable development that provides an expertise that can help us better characterize and better identify where we can improve our action towards sustainability. So our Foundation for Sustainable Development would prepare the pilot project and lead the pilot project that I was referring to previously. And then the results of these pilot projects can serve the bank in a way that we can propose new services and new offers to our customers. Next, please. So I will give just one example of what the foundation has done regarding climate smart irrigation. That was a project held with Agrotech Sousmessa, which is an association located in Agadir. The objective of this project was, it was a first of its kind at that time in 2010. The irrigation of 40,000 hectares of citrus and 12,000 hectares of vegetable production in the area of Agadir. and the objective was to make the irrigation more sustainable using agricultural weather stations. So these stations would help, would capture, analyze the data, the weather data and soil data, and transmits daily irrigation instructions to more than 6,000 farmers. And of course, the foundation also financed intensive training and awareness raising on water management among those farmers, so that they can have the best use of this new technology. As for the project's impacts, the estimate of 20% of water savings per year, which represents a small dam. So as you can see, there was a real potential for improved irrigation, while maintaining or even improving the yield of these farms. Around 20% of electricity savings, because when you reduce irrigation, you reduce also the energy you're using for this irrigation. And saving of fertilizers, because a lot of farmers would use fertigation, so it would use the fertilizers in the water. And this project was, as I said, one of the first of its kind, and to use an application, to use mobiles. So there's the foundation. This is also the role of the foundation to come up with innovative projects. And since then, Agrotex Usmasa have been able to scale that project, which is very very positive for the region. Next, please. I think one of the question was also regarding the cost of water. So I wanted just to distinguish between different costs of water. When we're talking about cost of irrigation, we have to distinguish between the cost of water infrastructure. So that means the equipment that the farmers have to invest in, the cost of the operation. So how much it costs to operate the irrigation, and then the real cost of water itself. So regarding the cost of water, the cost of infrastructure, we have a series of products. These products are dedicated to all farmers, whether they are small or commercial farms. We also have Saqi Optimisé, which is a product that we have developed from the pilot projects that I was referring to. So the farmers who want to invest in agrometeorological stations or other tools to improve the way they use irrigation water, it is also financed. The advantage of Saqi product is that it is mixed with the subsidy that the Ministry of Agriculture would provide, so that the farmer can easily equip, and especially for the conversion from gravity irrigation to drip irrigation. Regarding the cost of operations, here we're referring to how the farmer can reduce the cost of the functioning of its irrigation. So for that, you can refer to our product, which is Saqi Solaire, which finances the use of solar pumping systems. Because actually, one of for the operation, the main cost is energy. And in addition to that, we also finance energy efficiency measures. So if the farmers are willing to change, for example, their pumps, then they can also get a financing. And this financing, because it is within a special program, comes with a prime, an investment prime. And the cost of water, finally, it's the real cost of water. I mean, the cost of the cubic meters of water. So I can here mention some of the projects where we have contributed. For example, Sibt El Gardan. In this region now, it is in the south of Morocco. We have been part of a public-private partnership aiming at safeguarding the citrus perimeter and to reduce the pressure on the water, the underground water resources by mobilizing surface water from the Auluz Dam. So for this and for another one, which is Tuka Etbaha water desalination plant, which is a partnership between l'Office National de l'Eau and the Ministry of Agriculture. For both these projects, the farmers needed to subscribe before the investment was done by the project developer, and the Crédit Agricole du Maroc have financed this subscription so that the farmers can secure their water resources and at the same time avoid using underground water resources. Next, please. Now, regarding how to adapt to climate change, we have a series of actions that are included in our sustainable strategy. One of them is the environmental and social management system. This is a set of procedures and tools. The objective is how we can identify and analyze the impacts of the environmental and social impacts of the project that we're financing. So it is a very useful tool both for the bank and for the client, because the overall objective is to mitigate the negative impact that may come from the project. And this, of course, includes all kind of environmental impacts. Water, of course, overuse of water, pollution, air pollution also, soil pollution, etc. So we make sure that we would analyze all the environmental impact at the same time that we're analyzing also the social impact of the project. And it is a way also to raise awareness amongst our customers so that they can take the best action to minimize the negative impacts that they might have. So this is a very useful tool that we are using to support our clients in improving their sustainability capacities. Next, please. At the same time, we are also improving our own knowledge on what practices can be supported and should be supported in order to have a more sustainable agriculture. So the Foundation for Sustainable Development have been experimenting a lot of practices in various areas and in various sectors. For example, we had a program on sustainable agriculture in 3 different agroecological areas. And the objective of this program was to find a way to measure the overall sustainability of farms. So we have defined a series of criteria and a series of indicators that would give us a good image of the sustainability trend of the farm. At the same time, the foundation also promoted local food systems. So with a large training material that have been developed on agroecological production, use of compost and use of natural fertilizers, natural repellents, etc. And at the same time also trying to link the farmers, the local producers to the consumers through the implementation of local markets. We also had a very interesting program in the Atlas area, where we have supported the planting of almond trees, and also supported their certification to organic agriculture. As you know, we have well, this project was led with the High Atlas Foundation, and it really targeted small communities, smallholder farmers, and it has for one of the first times in Morocco, actually, it's not very well known, but there is, apart from the normal or usual certification, there's also a group certification. So the objective of this program was also to test how efficient is this group certification to get the organic label. Recently, we had a program on sustainable milk production in Tedla with the embassy of the Netherlands, and we benefited from the expertise of the Netherlands regarding milk production. And we came up with instructions on how we can improve sustainability of the milk producers at different levels. Of course, always improve the profitability, but also at the same time taking into consideration the environmental and social aspects. We have worked on waste valorization in Souss Messa, as we have also worked on sustainable beekeeping last year, because you know that last year there had been a collapse in the colonies of bees, so and it is directly linked to climate change, and the foundation decided to contribute by having the training program for beekeepers to improve their practices. And all the material that is produced by the foundation actually is available on Fellah Trade, which is a website of Crédit Agricole du Maroc. Next, please. I will end up with the finance part. So we have been talking about raising awareness of the customers, raising awareness more globally, and trying to experiment new practices regarding agriculture, sustainable agriculture. And of course, the last part is the financing. The objective is really to encourage farmers and all those who are working in the agricultural sector to include those new ways of working and try to improve their CO2 footprint and improve the way they manage natural resources. We have a series of products within a program called Istidama, which means sustainability in Arabic. It comes with a loan, an investment premium of 10%, and then technical support, because we have noticed that a lot of customers or farmers would be very interested by integrating new methods in the way they produce, but there's always a perception of risk because they would not know exactly what technology would be the best suited for them, the best option, what works better for them, etc. So the technical support is really important, especially for the farmers. And we have also this product targets energy efficiency and renewable energy, both at the farm level and at the plant level for agro-industry. And then we have waste management, Agronifaya. Agronifaya finances the waste management and treatment and valorization. So, for example, compost, but also if there is a project that would reuse the plastic that comes from agriculture. As you know, because agriculture has there have been a huge modernization of the agricultural sector. Well, it comes also with more production of waste. So there is also a lot of plastic waste that is used in agriculture, and that has to be managed. So we finance this kind of projects. And finally, organic agriculture. This is a trend globally. Organic agriculture is more and more has a growing market. In Morocco, also we can notice that there is a growing demand for organic products, and but still there's also some constraints that have to be removed for the farmers to really adopt organic farming. So with this product, we aim to help them transition to this new way of doing things. And that's it. I thank you for your attention, and of course, if there is any question.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I think that that concludes the presentation. So thank you, Mrs. Miriam, and we'll now move on to questions. So what I'll do is I will start with the questions, and please do, anyone on the panel, please do feel free to come in if you think that the question pertains to you, or you have something to say. So first of all, a question from Mr. Mandori: if the agricultural production model remains the same for the next 20 years, what consequences will we have? And I think, yeah, anyone on the call that would like to have a stab at that question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, no problem. The question was, if the agricultural production model remains the same for the next 20 years, what consequences will we have?
I might have a couple elements for this question.
Yes, please, Ahmed.
I think there were some studies that were done by the Ministry of Finance concerning the impacts of the climate on agriculture and then the added value in the Moroccan economy. And one of the outcomes of that result of that study was that there will be an increase of about 3% of water use in agriculture from here to 2030, and there will also be a significant increase in demand for water for industry and for drinking, but it's going to create a deficit of almost 2.3 billion cubic meters per year by 2030. this will need significant amounts of investment in desalination plants, in wastewater treatment plants, and water saving. And at this point, that is not sustainable at all. The Minister of Finance has recently come out and made a declaration that Morocco has to shift its paradigm into how it perceives water stress. It is no longer something that is punctual, but it's something that is the new norm. We are in an everlasting water stress, and we need to adopt our economy by diversifying more into other sectors. Obviously, agriculture will always play a central role in Moroccan culture and economy, but it has to be dependent less on than other sectors because of this water stress. And until we have this sufficient infrastructure and investments in retrieving water from the environment to go back to a sustainable agriculture.
I can provide a comment if possible.
Yes, please.
Well, I would say that the current model can't stay like this. I mean, we have to really evolve into a new model. And I speak about agriculture and in Morocco. The way we do, for example, farming in under rain-fed areas has to evolve. The way the practice is now is not sustainable, neither for soil, neither for preserving water. So we have to move, for example, to a no-till system. We have to move to more resilient crops. We have to plant more carob, more cactus, and those are all in the Moroccan strategy, Green Generation Green. There's a plan to plant 100,000 carob tree, which require a lot less water than some of the other trees. We have also to adopt new technology that can help us minimize and use less water for the same productivity. So, and also develop new crops that have higher productivity. So those are some of the examples. So just to say that we cannot, it's not an option to stay under the same model. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear consensus there that model needs to change, and I think I think back to the old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today, and I think that's equally valid for the shift to sustainable agriculture and water use. So moving on to the next question, and Dr. Bakari might want to have a stab at this one from Abdel Hamid Mahouch. What are the mechanisms that can be adopted to create added value in the agricultural sector?
Added value, that means producing more and better quality, and there are different ways. In producing more, here again, within the Generation Green strategy, we have a plan to increase by 50% the production of cereals. Cereals play an important role in agriculture in Morocco. There are about 4 million hectares that are seeded to legumes, to cereals, and a little bit to legumes. And there is potential to do that by increasing by 50% more yield will increase the value for the small farmers. We have new technologies right now that are available. We need to implement them. We need to get them to the farmers. There is the new varieties. There is the new there's a way of doing fertilization in a better way. Morocco uses a lot less fertilizer than in Europe or in China, for example. We use 60 kilograms per hectare. In Europe, we use more than 100, some up to 200 kilograms. So we can achieve a better yield by adjusting, not use. We need to use the right amount, and there are new technologies that can help us doing that by doing soil analysis, by doing follow-up and regular analysis to provide to the soil the accurate amount that the plants and the soil need. Now, on the quality, we can increase also, and there is a plan of improving, for example, organic agriculture. There's a plan in Morocco to go to 100,000 hectares of organic agriculture, and that will increase the value. Obviously, that's a niche market, but still for the farmers who choose to do organic, they will have that options. There will be more ways of doing certification. There will be more better practices. INRA, with several other partners, we are developing an organic agriculture central technical centers that will help in research, in education, and also in transfer of technology in organic agriculture. So those are some of the examples I believe we could improve the value of agricultural product and help the small farmers. Thank you.
Maybe
Thank you very much. Please do, yes.
Maybe just to add on that there's also a way to improve value when you transform the products. Having the raw products is very interesting if you have the good quality, as Mr. Bekawi said. If you transform those products, be it at the farm level, you already improve the added value. And then if we can avoid for Morocco globally to export products that it would re-import once they're processed, then we can have a great added value for our agriculture. And this is something I think which is planned in the new Génération Green to improve the added value of the whole value chain.
Thank you both. Very, very helpful indeed. Next question is addressed to Ahmed and myself from Ms. Bishra Gumri, and the question is, what are the innovative measures that the UK might provide in order to deal with the drought? Well, I think I covered them in some order earlier. You know, from water allocation to monitoring systems to drip irrigation and automated irrigation systems that can help reduce water usage and manage allocations better. Also, coming to SIAM, we have a range of companies, everything from seed companies to research companies and universities. All of these companies are looking at how to increase yields, how to decrease water use of crops, move towards perhaps more perennial crops and better variations that are less water intensive. So I think there is definitely an element of knowledge sharing that is important, and that can be bottom up just as much as it can be top down in terms of learning what works at a local level and sharing that. And I think, you know, in that spirit, it's been fantastic to hear from panelists today. And I know for a fact that businesses coming to Morocco are just as excited to learn from their Moroccan friends and colleagues as they are to pitch them their products and services. Ahmed, I'm not sure if you had anything to add.
No, just I mean, you've summarized it quite well. I just wanted to add that also the UK is, especially the Met Office, has one of the best tools for predicting climate with their access to the supercomputer and large amount of data. And they've begun doing some work with the Moroccan Met Office. They'll be coming soon for several other workshops to discuss their water-wise program as well. So there's still a lot to learn from the UK and interesting ideas to exchange between Morocco and the UK in the field of water.
Beyond agriculture, at a water level, we have companies such as RSK and Binny's Bywater as well, who are working with ONI to look at water management, water use, desalination, all of which are important processes. Fantastic. May I just say as well that, as I said at the beginning, for those that would like more information on these businesses, specific businesses or specific connections, please do get in touch. I'd also like to say that for anyone interested in working with the UK at the Pavilion, there are still sponsorship opportunities to highlight your presence at the UK Pavilion. And if there's any interest in following on that, please do get in touch with me. Next question. is subsoil drip irrigation a solution to assess water scarcity in Morocco? That's to Professor Shabunia. I've already touched on that quite a lot, but any other thoughts on that question, Professor?
Yeah, I mean, the subsoil drip irrigation has been presented at early years as the silver bullets, because we thought that it basically reduces the evaporation, which is, I mean, 20% of the water. However, if it is not done appropriately in the right condition, the gain that we made through evaporation loss, we will get it through deep population loss. So it has to be done very properly, and it has to take into account the nature of the plant that you have, and more importantly, the nature of the soil, because the dynamic, what we call the unsaturated zone dynamic, varied from one soil type to another type. So it has to be done very carefully.
Fantastic, thank you. It's very clear. Next question from Fatah El Jazuli is, what are the short-term strategies to deal with water scarcity in the mountainous areas of southern Morocco? Mr. Tequila, I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
If I might jump on this issue of the mountain area, because we have been working extensively in the mountain area. As I said in my presentation, the mountain area is the water tower. Okay, we are facing some problem in the mountain area related to deforestation, related to increase of settlement, of public settlement, which contributes strongly to soil erosion and prevent water for infiltrating to the water table. However, here again, there is no solution fit at all. I think that we should think about some traditional way of managing water. Moroccan people have been doing very great job, especially in the mountain area, using very traditional way, like water harvesting, water managed, not by the state, but the community. All this has to be revived, better organized, and I think that we can make a difference here in the mountain area. Also, I think that the agroecology in the mountain area can be a very important asset, because it is in the mountain area there is no single plant. It's a mixture of several layers of plants. You have wheat, alfalfa, olives, almonds, and you have animals. So we cannot address the agriculture in the mountain area as the same way that we address the agriculture in the cash crop plain. It has to be addressed in systemic way, and in taking into account all this component of the agricultural system as it is.
So one thing, if I may, promoting agroforestry, again, as Dr. Shabouni said, generally in the mountain it's a mixture of things, but promoting agroforestry, meaning combining trees and crops, is one way of improving sustainability and also yield. Trees maintain the soil, and when we remove the trees, there is a huge problem with erosions, and also if there is erosion, of course, the soil is not there, and the yield will go down. So that's one way. In the southern areas of Morocco, desertic areas, here we have to focus more on plants that are more adapted to low rainfall. Argan needs a little bit of water and could be one options, but there's cactus, there's caroubs, depending, again, if there's this very small amount of water that's provided, there are some plants that could be adopted. Acacia is another example of trees that could be adopted in the south. Also more salt tolerant, because in some areas in the south, the water, even if found, is salty. And there are some plants that are more adapted to salt than others. Israel has a significant experience with growing plants in the desert, and we could learn from that experience quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, please, absolutely.
I totally agree with what have been said. Just to say that maybe there are also a way to build terraces and other kind of structures that help keeping the water. But maybe one constraint that we have is that it is often work intensive. And because we have tried with the foundation to have some projects in the south, we have noticed that unfortunately a lot of the youth actually have left those areas and are now located in the big cities. And it is very difficult now to have projects. If you don't revive the economy, then it's difficult to have a project in the mountainous areas, because the workforce has left to the big cities, and you cannot have unfortunately in mountains you need a lot of work to get something properly done, and to have to renew all these or revive all these practices that have been mentioned. And so you always have to link the technical practices with the social constraint that you might have.
Yeah, and completely agree. Thank you. That's a very good point. The next question is, I think we have about 5 minutes left, so I'll try and group them. There's a question around green energy and saving water, which I think we addressed during the main talk. The question around hydroponics and desalination. How can we use the technologies such as hydroponics and desalination to support agriculture in Morocco? Final question before we're wrapping up. So please do come in and please do share final thoughts before we close as well. Opening the floor.
Yeah, if I may. With hydroponics or growing off-soil plants definitely is a very efficient way, not only for water use or fertilizer, pesticides, and I'm sorry, so definitely. But however, it is a significant investment. It is a technology that is not very widespread in Morocco. And I think the Crédit Agricole's Istidama program is a very good lever to boost the use of hydroponics. It will also allow previously unfertile lands to be used for agriculture. So definitely hydroponics has a future for Moroccan agriculture. And desalination, as said before, I mean, Morocco is developing a lot of desalination specifically for agriculture. So eventually the price of water is going to be to a point where it might be even feasible to have privately run desalination plants for large agriculture producers or even cooperatives. I mean, there's more than enough seawater to use, so why not use it, especially with so much renewable energy potential in Morocco, whether it's wind, solar, and definitely the regulatory landscape is in favor of such developments.
Fantastic, thanks, Ahmed. So passing to Mrs. Dekil and Professor, if you have any more final words before we close. that you'd wish to impart?
I would just add one point that we didn't address here when we are talking about desalination. I think that unfortunately in Morocco we are forgetting about the brain. You know, when we extract salt from the water, what we do with the brain. And we need to have some innovative solution in order to not let this brain in the nature, or to send it to the sea, because it will impact the biodiversity of the coastal zone. It will impact a lot of things. And here again, the Israeli have some headways, since they are using the brain in the solar panel construction, and they have been finding very good result. We collaborate with them in this regard. Thank you.
Fantastic. Just on the rain, I mean, in technology, one of the exhibitors at SIAM is a company called Seawater Greenhouse, who have an interesting, well, it's not rain, but it's a small scale desalination plant. It's very low input. So please do search them out. But yes, Doctor, please do come in.
Okay, thank you. Just some final thoughts. First of all, I'm optimistic that Morocco can be self-sufficient in a lot of things, including cereals and other crops, and even increasing productivity of other crops. Now, the problem of the water, in my view, there isn't a silver bullet. It probably will come from different solutions, and that include desalination, recovery of water, going to more resilient plants, switching crops to more resilient crops, using new technologies to preserve water. All of these, I think, will combine to a better use efficiency of water. So that's again, I believe that we could do better and in a more sustainable way by implementing some of this technology. One of the challenges we have is getting some of the technologies to the farmers, either because lack of communications or because of lack of adoption. But our programs, our ministry is working on that. There's a plan to enhance in a significant way the number of advisors using new technologies such as digital technologies through the phone, through the internet, and I believe all of those will contribute to a better use of water and a better productivity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fawzi. Madam Tequila, final word to you, and then I think we can wrap up. But before I do that, I'd just like to thank the whole panel. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise. It's been very informative for me, and I'm sure for all of the colleagues that have joined us on the call. So thank you, Dr. Fawzi, Dr. Saim, Mr. Kill and Ahmed, and to Stephen earlier who joined us at the beginning. Thank you all for your time. Mr. Zakil, over to you for final words. Thank you.
Thank you. You're putting a big pressure on me. Well, I think that the solutions, the technical solutions exist, and this panel has proved it. Now it's about time and how fast we can go. I think we need to join efforts so that we can all together find a way to come up with solutions to this big challenge. Thank you.
Very well put, and I think an excellent way to sum it up. As I said before, you know, the British Embassy will be at SIAM early next month, but our engagement with the sector in Morocco is not limited to that. We're always available, so please do reach out via Britcham or directly any questions or connections that you wish to make. So thank you all, and look forward to the next webinar and to catching up with you all soon. Shukran bzif.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.